Ava and Drew, and the alliance nobody saw coming. Let us start with Ava and Drew, because this is the kind of pairing that makes immediate, perfect sense the moment you step back and look at the full picture, and yet somehow manages to feel genuinely surprising because neither of them announced it was coming. It started simply enough. A conversation by the pool. Two people who have complicated histories, with almost everyone in Port Charles finding themselves in the same space without the usual antagonism that tends to define interactions in this town. What happened between Ava and Drew in that poolside exchange was something that is actually quite rare for either of them, a conversation that felt neither strategic nor hostile. Just two people talking. Finding, perhaps to their own mild surprise, that they understand certain things about each other in ways that the people around them do not. Ava understands what it is to be the person in the room that everyone else has decided is the villain. She has lived that. She has been the character that Port Charles condemns, that people warn each other about, that shows up in other people's stories as the threat or the cautionary tale. And yet Ava has also survived things, has endured things, has come out the other side of situations that should have finished her and found a way to keep moving. That specific resilience, the kind that does not come from being good but from being capable, is something she shares with Drew in this particular chapter of his story. Drew, for his part, is not looking for friends. He is looking for leverage and advantage, and whatever tools he can assemble against the people he believes wronged him. But Ava is the kind of person who can be useful to someone in that position, and Drew is smart enough to recognize utility even in the middle of his focused fury. The more telling moment came when Ava was talking to Sunny. She raised the question of whether Sunny had asked Ethan to go after Drew. Now, the honest answer to that question is no. Sunny did not task Ethan with targeting Drew, and the actual reason Ethan was doing what he was doing has nothing to do with Sunny's instructions. Ava was not genuinely asking because she believed the answer was yes. She was testing. Poking. Seeing how Sunny would respond to having Drew's name brought into a conversation about loyalty and protection, and who Sunny considers as people. The response told her something important. Sunny did not simply dismiss the question. He issued what amounted to a warning, a very Sunny-flavored reminder that consequences follow for people who go after the people he cares about. And in issuing that warning, he grouped Drew and Ava together. He put them in the same category, which means from Sunny's perspective, they are already operating as a unit of some kind, or, at minimum, as parallel threats that need to be managed together. That grouping may end up being the thing that actually cements the alliance. Because if Sunny is already treating them as connected, there is a practical argument for being connected. If you're going to face the same consequence regardless, you might as well face it with someone at your side who has their own reasons to be in the fight. Ava has been known to fall for complicated men. That is one of the most consistent patterns in her life, the attraction to men who are dangerous and capable and not quite safe to be with. Drew right now is exactly that profile. Newly freed from months of paralysis, burning with focused anger, smart and calculating, and absolutely not safe for anyone who does not understand what they're getting into. Some of the audience has noticed something in the scenes between Ava and Drew that goes beyond strategic alliance. A chemistry. A quality of attention that each pays to the other that has a different texture than simple mutual usefulness. Whether the show pursues that, whether what begins as an alliance of convenience develops into something more personal and more complicated, is a question that the coming weeks are going to answer. But the ingredients are present. The history is compatible. And General Hospital has always been at its most interesting when it takes two characters who seem like they should repel each other and finds the specific angle at which they fit together instead. Nina is going to be the complication. Because Nina's feelings about Drew are not something that can be papered over with strategic explanations. Nina has been deeply and personally affected by the Drew situation. She is one of the people most directly implicated in what was done to him, and she has her own complicated feelings about his recovery and what it means for the secrets she has been carrying. Finding out that Ava is forming an alliance with the man at the center of all of that is going to create friction in the Nina-Ava friendship that has already been under pressure from multiple directions this summer. But Ava rarely lets other people's discomfort override her own assessment of what serves her best. She is going to move in the direction that makes strategic sense for Ava, and right now that direction appears to be toward Drew. Port Charles has a new team forming. And the people who should be watching it most closely are the ones who are not paying attention at all. Brooklyn's guilt, and the confession that keeps almost happening. Now let us talk about Brooklyn, because this is the storyline that has been building with a slow, accumulating emotional weight all summer and is now pressing against the limits of what one person can carry in silence, without breaking. Let us go back to that night on Route 91. Brooklyn was driving. She had been drinking, not to the point where she felt impaired, not to the point where she made the internal calculation that she was too intoxicated to drive, but enough that a breathalyzer, had one been administered, might have told a different story than what she felt in her body. She was rushing to get somewhere. She wanted to see Gio perform. She was moving through a dark night on a road that was doing what dark roads do, and something happened. An oncoming car driving erratically, a swerve to avoid it, a guardrail that caught her vehicle. The sound of impact. The dark road behind her. And Brooklyn, unable to see in the darkness that the car she had swerved away from had gone off the road entirely, had gone down an embankment, had become the site of a catastrophe she did not witness.
She drove on.
She told herself she had not seen anything definitive. That the impact was with the guardrail, her own vehicle, not anything she could confirm was connected to a larger accident. She drove to see Gio perform, and she got there too late anyway. And then she found out what happened to Jordan on Route 91 that night. The logic of what she did, or did not do, has been sitting with her ever since. Not the simple logic of guilt, though that is present too. The specific, torturing logic of all the alternative versions of that night that would have produced different outcomes. If she had stopped. If she had called from her car to report an erratic driver on the road. If she had done the smallest, most basic thing that the situation might have asked of her. Jordan might not have burned. Curtis might not have gone to trial based on the wrong premise. Isaiah might still have full use of his hand and his surgical career. That chain of if-onlys is what is eating Brooklyn alive right now. The reason she did not stop, the reason that felt rational in the moment and feels so much worse in retrospect, was Phoebe, the adoption. The specific fear that a failed breathalyzer test would attach itself to the record of people trying to become parents and close a door that she and Chase have been working toward together. She was protecting the possibility of Phoebe before Phoebe was even officially theirs. And now they are at the finish line. The adoption papers have been signed. Phoebe is becoming theirs in the most official possible way. The thing Brooklyn was protecting is now protected, and the protection no longer requires the silence. Whatever the breathalyzer might have shown that night, Phoebe is already hers. The damage that Brooklyn was afraid that truth might cause has a different relationship to the present moment than it had to the night it happened. That shift is part of what is making the confession so close to the surface right now. The logic that justified silence protect the adoption has resolved. And what is left is just the truth sitting inside Brooklyn with nowhere to go and growing heavier with every development in Curtis's trial. Because the trial is bringing all of it back. Every day that the proceedings continue, every piece of testimony, every moment where the actual cause of what happened to Jordan and Curtis is not the thing being examined, Brooklyn feels the weight of knowing what the trial is missing. She knows Curtis is in that courtroom, at least in part because of something that was set in motion by a chain of events she was present for. Not responsible for in a direct way, she did not cause the car accident, but connected to in ways that haunt her. She told Gio and Trina she would smooth things over with Simon regarding their music situation, which is its own pressure. She has commitments she is not certain she can keep piling up alongside the commitment to the truth she has been not quite making for months. The load is not sustainable. Something is going to give. The question is not really whether Brooklyn confesses anymore. It is who she tells first, and what the timing of that telling does to the trial, to Curtis and Jordan, to Chase, to everything she has built with the adoption finally complete. A private confession, telling someone the truth outside of any formal legal setting, is very different from standing up in a courtroom or going to the police. But even a private truth has a way of becoming public in Port Charles. Nothing stays contained here for long. Chase does not yet know that Brooklyn was the driver on that road. He knows she framed Willow. He absorbed that confession, processed it, rebuilt the trust between them in the aftermath. He has demonstrated this summer that he is capable of receiving hard truths from Brooklyn and continuing to choose her. But this truth is different in kind. This one has innocent people as its collateral damage. This one has a trial ongoing. This one could not have stayed private even if Brooke Lynn had wanted it to. The moment it is spoken, it enters a world where it has consequences she cannot control. Brooke Lynn is going to have to decide. And the weight of not deciding is becoming indistinguishable from the weight of what she would face if she did.